Hello, my name is Jessica Dale. Welcome to my new podcast called Visionary Voices, where we will explore the stories of my friends who are blind or visually impaired from their perspective. Feel free, if you wish, to grab your beverage of choice, sit back, relax, and enjoy the stimulating conversation. Okay, welcome to episode 1 of Visionary Voices. My guest on this inaugural episode is Greg Lindberg. Go ahead and give listeners a quick intro if you would.
Alrighty. Hey there, Jess. It's an honor to be on your maiden voyage episode here on Visionary Voices. And like you mentioned, my name is Greg Lindberg. So I live in the Orlando, Florida area. And I do have a guide dog named Goldie, who's a golden doodle. So I do like to refer to ourselves as Double G. As far as work, so I do work as a writer for a university here in Florida. And love sports. I'm a big sports fan in general, especially baseball and football. But also love blind sports like beat baseball, goalball, blind hockey, and do a podcast on those as well.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for that. I don't get to play it very often myself, but I'm a huge goalball fan.
Nice. It is a really, really cool sport. I haven't had a chance to really play it much myself, but it is in the Paralympics, and it is like the most popular, most well-known sport for the blind.
Oh, wow, that's cool. I didn't realize it was in the Paralympics.
Yeah.
So I do have some questions prepared. Let's go ahead and get started with those. Can you share your journey and what inspired you to become an advocate for the blind and visually impaired community?
Sure, absolutely. So I have an eye condition called Leber's congenital amaurosis, LCA for short. And so I was born with that, diagnosed at the age of 3 with retinitis pigmentosa, which LCA is in the RP family. So I've been visually impaired since birth. And so my vision has declined over time. I used to have enough vision where I could use magnification and read, print, ride a bike, use roller skates, whatnot. But it has changed over the course of my life to the point where I pretty much have light perception now. So that's kind of my visual impairment journey. And so in terms of, like you said, advocacy, being an advocate, so for a long time, I really did not consider myself an advocate. Was always kind of shy, soft-spoken, more reserved. And in some contexts, I still am to this day. But I definitely learned over time that I had to at least advocate for myself and speak up for myself in order to, advocate for my needs, whether it was in school, whether it's for my job, just life in general. You have to advocate for yourself in order to just accomplish a lot of different things, transportation, any kind of things that you want to do in your life. Advocacy is so important. And I think as I became a better advocate for myself, I learned the importance of advocating for others and, essentially becoming an advocate for the blind and visually impaired community. And so like I did mention earlier, I do host a podcast. It's called Eyes Free Sports. And so I feel like I've advocated a lot on that podcast. I've done 120 episodes now, which I'm super proud of. It's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to that point. But so the main focus is sports for the blind and visually impaired. So interviewing, people with all different types of visual conditions, just about their lives, about their careers, accomplishments, but with an angle of sports and recreation that they participated in. So I feel like that's helped raise a lot of awareness about what blind and visually impaired people can do, and essentially advocating, maybe more indirectly for the blind and visually impaired community. And then in addition, I've also been involved in ACB, the American Council of the Blind, now for a while, at local levels, state levels, and then nationally with ACB Next Generation, which is the 18 to 40-year-old demographic of ACB. So I've definitely done a lot of advocacy through that work as well.
Wow, that's great. What are some of the biggest challenges you've faced as a visually impaired person, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I think like anyone with a disability, but in this case, specifically blindness or low vision, we've all faced challenges. I like to say anyone, no matter your situation, is going to face challenges in life, and you just have to try your best to navigate around them and overcome them as best you can. And so for me, I do know that one big area that comes to mind is employment. And thinking back to, when I was in college and graduating and whatnot, it was a challenge finding a job and just being able to confidently put myself out there and, again, advocate for what I needed, in a professional manner, and try to get an employer to give me an opportunity, to give me a chance to work. And so for a while there, I had many, many interviews to just get a job. And, even after that, finding a better job, and throughout my career, trying to move up and find better opportunities. It's gotten a little bit easier just with more experience that I've been able to get over time, but it's still definitely a challenge. Just trying to, persuade and convince others that even though we are blind and visually impaired, we're very much capable of doing, many of the same tasks that our sighted peers can do, maybe just in a different way, with technology, with some pretty simple, relatively mainstream and common accommodations. I think transportation is another one. I know my O&M instructor, when I was pretty young, he told my parents, one of Greg's biggest challenges in his life is going to be getting around, transportation. And he was absolutely right. I've never really lived in an area that's super walkable, at least long term, or that has a lot of easy access to public transit. So just finding rides, whether it's family, whether it's friends, other connections that I've been able to make, rideshare, paratransit. It's, I consider myself lucky on a lot of fronts in terms of transportation, but at the same time, if I want to go somewhere on a whim or without a lot of notice, it can be a challenge. And especially as a guide dog handler as well, when it comes to the rideshare companies, those who have guide dogs know full well, or service dogs in general, that can be a challenge to get rides and get drivers to understand, that they do have to transport service animals.
True. Yeah, I know that's been a big thing as of late.
Absolutely.
How has technology impacted your life? And are there any specific tools or devices that have been particularly helpful?
Yeah, so technology has played a huge role in my life, whether it's just kind of more mainstream technology, like computers, smartphones, or assistive technology like magnification software, screen readers, different devices I've had over the years. So right now I am currently a VoiceOver user. I have an iPhone and use VoiceOver on my phone, which to me is a game changer. I mean, when that came out, I think around 2011, when VoiceOver was first introduced on the iPhone, it really opened up a whole new world for, the blind community, those who don't have usable vision, to be able to read with magnification. And I actually just also got very recently got the Meta smart glasses, the Ray-Ban glasses. And so still, using those, learning to use those and all the features and everything. But I know just already in the brief time I've had them that they're going to be a huge help. Just because it's a wearable device, you don't have to hold up your phone to take a picture of something or whatnot. You can just literally talk to the glasses or press a button on them to get information about your surroundings. And yeah, just over the years, magnification, thinking back to like Zoom text, and I think I used a program called Big Shot Magnifier back in like the early 2000s. And all kinds of video magnifiers I've had. I mean, there's so much out there, and I'm so grateful for technology and to be living in this day and age where there is so much out there to help us with our, just be more independent and be able to do more things ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Plus, if you have a compatible iPhone, you've got the magnifier app, too, which, in addition to magnifying things, will read things and help you find things such as doors and even tell you how to operate them. So that's pretty cool.
That's right. And that is such a great point that a lot of this technology now, assistive technology, is built into devices, whereas in the past, that was not the case. So again, we're so lucky to have what we do and the companies that do embrace that.
Yes, for sure. Can you tell us about a memorable experience or achievement that you're especially proud of?
Sure. So back in 2022, I had the chance to attend, it's called the Song Site Music Mentoring Retreat. And this was an inaugural event put on by Scott McIntyre, who was on American Idol back in 2009. I believe he finished in 8th place, so he was a top 10 finalist on the show. And he's also a blind musician, Christian/pop singer, artist, keyboardist. And so he put on this camp for blind and visually impaired musicians. And so there were 7 of us that went out to Scottsdale, Arizona. Kind of ironic, Scott in Scottsdale, just kind of worked out that way. So I've played guitar and sang for the last 10 years or so, and was lucky enough to be chosen to attend that event. And it was just so empowering to be around, other blind and visually impaired musicians, and just to getting to talk shop about, our experiences, not only when it comes to music, but just blindness and low vision and being able to relate on so many different things. And then we also got to record a song called Let the Light In. So if you search for Let the Light In Song Site, SONGSIGHT on YouTube, you can hear that song. And again, composed and produced pretty much, entirely by blind and visually impaired artists. And such an inspirational song, and it was such a neat experience overall to be part of that.
That is so cool.
It was fun, yeah. And I do hope they will have another one. I think Scott's working on it, so hopefully in the future I'll be able to go back again.
You can go as an adult?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh, cool. I say that because there's not very many camps for blind adults.
It's so true. Yeah.
There needs to be more.
I fully agree. Yeah, especially in the sports area, which I'm obviously very familiar with. There's campabilities. There's so many sports camps focused on not just the blind, children community, but kids with disabilities in general. And yeah, I absolutely fully 100% agree. There should be more opportunities for adults.
In any sector, in sports, in music, in whatever you want to get into.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to someone who is newly diagnosed with a visual impairment?
That's a great question. So I've been, like I said, I have been visually impaired my whole life, although my vision has changed quite a bit over time. But let's say someone who's newly diagnosed, let's say as an adult, maybe had enough vision to drive and do a lot of things visually in the past. and then they get this diagnosis, it can be devastating. Let's be honest. Let's be frank. It's not an easy pill to swallow when you get some type of diagnosis like this that can absolutely have big effects, big implications on your day-to-day life. But that doesn't mean, life is over or that you should just give up, because there's so many opportunities and so many things out there that the blind and visually impaired community can do and is involved in. And I would say first, just, take some deep breaths, just kind of digest whatever information you're given about your condition. Definitely do research on your condition. If there's any kind of, supplements or any kind of research being done. I know there's certainly debate about, treatments and whatnot, but I do think it's very important to at least know what's out there and educate yourself, just so you can, have an idea of things going forward. And then, finding a community, whether it's an ACB, some type of blind community group, whether it's in your area, whether it's virtual, maybe both. I mean, there's so much out there, especially in this day and age of Zoom and virtual meetings and connections. So definitely try to connect with others, especially if you can find those with a similar condition or who might also be newly visually impaired or blind, because there are a lot of opportunities out there. And then also just research things that you're interested in. How can you do something maybe that you used to do a little bit differently? Like bowling. I used to bowl for a long time when I had more vision, and then got out of it for a while with more vision loss, but recently got back into it. And I learned about the guide rails and the different tools and kind of, strategies involved in a sport like that, and that I am still able to do. So there's a lot out there, and, thanks to the internet, like I said, in the virtual world that we live in, some quick research, can lead to a lot of great information, a lot of connections, and hopefully can really lift your spirits so that you are, more positive and have a more positive outlook about your situation.
Oh, yeah, for sure. In fact, I used to be on a blind bowling league.
Oh, cool.
And I loved it.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
Loved it. How do you stay motivated and maintain a positive mindset despite the challenges you face?
Yeah, so, I consider myself a positive person for sure, but I'm certainly not immune to, negative thoughts and feeling down at times. I mean, let's face it, life is hard, and when you have a disability, it can be even more challenging. But I think, like I mentioned in my last response, just getting involved in things, making connections, especially with others kind of in similar situations, can really benefit you in so many ways. And just being able to share those lived experiences, sharing those stories, seeing how others maybe have overcome a similar circumstance that you're facing, and you're thinking, oh my God, like I cannot do this. This is impossible. And then if you do reach out and make a connection with someone that you can relate to, it can be so powerful. So again, connections are critical. Just being active, I think, is so important. In general, people with disabilities are not as active. It's a given. It's a fact. So trying to find some type of physical activity, whether it's just taking a short walk or, reading audiobooks, joining some type of book club, sports, audio described movies, shows. There's so much out there, especially in this day and age, that we can enjoy as blind and visually impaired people. And I think finding those passions, finding those things that you like to do is so important to maintain that positive attitude, that positive mindset.
Yes, definitely. What changes would you like to see in society to better support visually impaired individuals?
A lot of it comes down to education and advocacy, like I talked about earlier. There's still so much lack of understanding, ignorance, whatever you want to call it. Maybe all those things kind of tied together. When it comes to the blind and visually impaired community and how we're viewed, how we're perceived, by those that have not really interacted with us or have, kind of that stereotypical view or whatnot. So I think just education, whether it's in, the actual school system or the education community, educating people about the blind and visually impaired. I read recently that Northern Illinois University now offers a class on, I forget the exact name, but it's like the blindness experience. And they teach students of, I believe, all different majors and areas of study, about what it's like to be blind and Braille and guide dogs and, canes, technology, just everything. And I was so thrilled to see that because I think that's so important, especially educating younger folks, about our abilities and about the resources that are out there. And again, just trying to show that we are in fact capable and successful and can do things that we enjoy and, trying to break down some of these stereotypes.
Yes, definitely. To be honest, I think that kind of stuff even needs to be offered as young as upper elementary and definitely into high school, not just college.
I agree. Yeah. I think just disabilities in general, discussion of disabilities is critical, especially at a young age like that.
Yeah, the younger you are, the earlier you can start learning about this stuff, the better off you'll be in the long run.
No doubt.
Can you discuss any projects or initiatives you're currently working on that aim to improve the lives of visually impaired people?
Sure. So I know I did mention my podcast earlier, Eyes Free Sports. And so like I said, I've done 120 episodes now, which I still can't believe I'm up to that number. But really, really proud of that project. Thinking back, I never really saw myself, doing anything like that, just kind of like in terms of podcasting in general. But, with a focus on the blind community and not only giving other people as guests a chance to share their stories, but also putting myself out there and identifying as someone who is blind. Like I said, was, a lot more reserved and not as open about that in the past. So really proud of what I've been able to do, definitely not trying to sound selfish at all to promote myself, but the goal has always been to give others a chance to share their stories. And hopefully listeners have found those stories to be, relevant, interesting, again, things that they can relate to and be like, oh, if that person can do X, Y, and Z, maybe I can myself. So really, really excited and proud of that project. And then also I mentioned ACB Next Generation. So it is a special interest affiliate of the American Council of the Blind. And I've been very involved in our publications committee, which includes a newsletter, a podcast, a blog on the ACB Next Generation website, which you can find at acbnextgeneration.org. And so again, kind of similar to my personal podcast, providing content through various platforms to help spread the word about not only what we're doing as an affiliate, as Next Gen, but also sharing stories and hopefully putting meaningful content out there, that people can find useful and that resonates with people.
That's awesome. How can people without visual impairments become better allies and supporters of the visually impaired community?
Yeah, so I absolutely think, we can make a better impact on the sighted world. I think we've come a ways, to a point, but there's still a lot more progress that needs to be made. And kind of like I said before about education, I think it's just so important that the sighted world, those individuals are willing to learn and interact with us and talk to us. I think a big part of it is just being open-minded, being willing to, say hello to someone or just have a conversation, with someone who might have a cane or a guide dog or whatnot. Not being afraid to approach someone and just say hello, how's your day going, whatever. Because obviously there is this fear. I think anyone with a disability has experienced it. Just someone, ignoring you or not saying anything or not being open-minded enough to communicate in whatever fashion that might be. But if sighted individuals do have more of those interactions and experiences, I think it can really open their minds to our capabilities, to who we are as humans, not just being identified or labeled as someone who's blind or visually impaired. And even just a quick interaction, I think, can absolutely have a positive impact.
Oh, for sure. 100%. What are your hopes and aspirations for the future, both personally and for the visually impaired community as a whole?
Yeah, so I would say personally, I certainly hope to move up in my career, continue as a writer, and I absolutely love writing and working in communications. So whatever that might look like, finding new opportunities in the future is super exciting. And I've been so fortunate to have employers give me chances, so whether it's moving up in a current position or taking on a new position at times in my career, I'm just so grateful to everyone who has believed in me and given me those chances. And I hope that'll continue in the future. In terms of the blind and visually impaired community, I definitely hope to see, more of a presence of blind and visually impaired folks, like in the media, in movies, and just, our day-to-day lives, to again showcase that we are capable, that we are able to do a lot of different things. And, hopefully those things will help change the perceptions, the stereotypes that people might have of us. And whatever I can do, just as one person out of 8 billion on this planet, to help maybe change those stereotypes or make a more positive impression, I'm definitely honored to be able to do.
Yes, for sure. What would you say is your greatest accomplishment and why?
Ooh, good question. That's a tough one. I honestly think, as far as my professional career, I'm just super, proud of being able to work now for about 12 years full time. I know the figure 70% is thrown around a lot out there. I don't know if that's still totally accurate, but that's always been the number, the unemployment rate within the blind and visually impaired population, which means only 30% of those who are not among the 70%, the 30% are working, but then I've also heard a lot of those are underemployed and underpaid and whatnot. So definitely proud of the career I've been able to carve out for myself. It definitely has not been easy. Like I said before, going through a zillion interviews and getting to this point has definitely been a lot more challenging than I ever thought it would be, looking back. But to be able to work for now this university and among, predominantly sighted individuals. I'm just so proud of that. And hopefully, maybe others will see that, hey, if Greg Lindberg can do this, or if anyone out there who's done something, of note, if you want to say, can do that, then maybe that the person witnessing or observing can be inspired to do so as well.
Yes, absolutely. Greg, if people want to do so, how can our listeners contact you?
Sure, I can definitely give out my email address. So it's glindberg, GLINDBERG @gmail.com. And you can also find me on Facebook if you just look for Greg Lindberg. On Twitter /X, I am still on there. It's at Greg the Writer, GREGTHEWRITER. And then just one more plug for my podcast. So it's called Eyes Free Sports, EYESFREE Sports. And you can go to eyesfreesports.com, or you can just search on your favorite podcast platform to find that as well.
Awesome. Does Eyes Free Sports have a separate email address or contact info?
It does not. I've been meaning to set one up, but I do just have my personal email address for that.
That's okay. That's how I have mine currently.
Gotcha. Yo. And yeah, I should also mention greglindberg.net is my personal website. You can also find some of my writing and podcasts and everything on there too.
Awesome. And for those who have it, don't forget about Mastodon.
Oh, that's right. I forget my username, to be honest, offhand. So.
I think it's just G. Lindberg. If people type in your name, they'll find you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still pretty new on there, so I'm not even sure how to find others and search. But yeah, then if you search for Greg Lindberg, I assume hopefully I'll pop up.
You will. Well, Greg, it's been a pleasure. It really has.
Thank you, Jess. This has been a ton of fun. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and especially here on the first episode. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes, I'm sure we'll have you back in a future episode.
Awesome. Sounds great.
All right, that does it for the inaugural episode of Visionary Voices. Feel free to use the RSS feed on the Visionary Voices Facebook page to subscribe. It will become active once this episode is published.